I think today we will see something about international business and what it is all about. What is the importance of this word called international business? What are the various facets of international business? And what is the future of international business per se? I was introduced to the subject when I was a student of an MBA program at the Indira Gandhi National Open University, where I used to take part in lectures and debates on this subject called as international business. I hence came interest in this area. And I did an MPhil program in international business from the Alagappa University, which is at Karaikudi in Tamil Nadu. And my thesis was on Indo-Singapore trade. I came to know that India exports a lot of milk to Singapore. I don't know what is the state of affairs as of now. But then I did an MBL program, Masters of Business Law program, at the National Law School of India University, where I was taught international trade laws, international trade by one Mr. Hegde, where he talked about the laws that govern international trade, and various aspects of international trade at length. Now, what is this word called international business all about? Can we sum it up into some kind of a procedure or some kind of a crisp way that people will understand what's it all about? International business is a combination of international marketing, international trade, and international finance. International business is driven by a word called as international economics. And somewhere I mentioned in my study of economics, economics is a study of utility and difficulty. Now I will repeat again, international business is a combination of international trade, international marketing, and international finance. International business rides piggyback on international economics. International economics also has got one component which is called as international business development. International economics has a component called as international business development. It is through international business development I understand many kinds of utility and possibilities in the overall domain of international economics. Maybe the word called international business development would also come under the overall gamut of international marketing. It would definitely come. International business development must be seen as a component of international marketing also. But given the vast diaspora of international business development would seen more as a component of international economics. What am I trying to say? I will come very quickly to the very important aspect of international economics and what it is. It is the theory of comparative advantage. I'll just come to that. But before I go into that, I will just give a small idea of what is the word called international business development. International business development tries to study various kinds of business possibilities which don't exist as of now, but could be an activity of the future. I was seeing something on a video and in some video sometime back where some little known village in the Balkans, the beautiful Balkans, is slowly becoming a hotspot for agricultural activities, for the export of various kinds of agricultural produce. This never existed before, but it's definitely an activity of international business development, a standalone activity. I see resources, people, and capabilities, and some at some international location. I try to tap on those capabilities, and then I try to derive and develop a totally new line of commercial activity, which was inert, which was not there before. That's going to be a very vital kind of activity in the international domain. And many developed countries of the world are actively trying to find out certain pockets around the world which can be tapped for international business development, and by saying so, international business. I will repeat again this statement. International business is a combination of international finance plus international trade plus international marketing. International trade is another word for international commerce. International commerce by itself is a combination of international finance and international trade. So we are getting a fairly clear idea of what is our domain called international business. And I will repeat that international economics stirs or is the driver of the overall activity called international business. Having said that, what is this word called international economics? Yeah. I'm just thinking of something which I used to teach long back, strategic management, combination of resources and capabilities. I don't know how resources and capabilities would be, it will definitely come into the overall scope of international economics. Fantastic. I remember two key words which are very apt for the situation. I told you that international economics largely is the concept of comparative advantage. Somewhere I'm the best B school professor in the world. I think I am. Because my mind never lets me down when I am teaching some subject. All the right things ring in my head at the right time. But I've forgotten the word for resources and capabilities. It is very apt for the situation. Okay, I'll repeat again. I'm the best business professor around the world. I have proved that over and over again in India, in Bangalore. I think the model that I adopt is a very vital and a very apt model to teach business and economics and commerce and all the allied fields. And I do a great job at it. I've been doing it for the last 15 years. I'm proud of it. I am Muhammad Ali of B School teaching because my mind never lets me down. Having said that, what is this factor word called theory of comparative advantage? That is what drives international business. I don't make something which I can buy at a cheaper rate. I'll repeat again. I don't make something which I can buy or source from the world at a cheaper rate. I will only make things which I cannot buy from the outside world. And these two factors change with time. Today we use petrol and diesel in our IC engines or cars and trucks. Tomorrow, if the electrical industry or the electrical car or electrical bus industry is going to take up in India in a very big way, the demand on petrol and diesel could fall down because there is a total strategic shift in locomotion as we see. Now, let us focus for a second on theory of comparative advantage. Um, I always try to find out. It is an perennial activity. I always try to find out from within my country what are the things I can buy which I am making as of now. But with growth, as because with growth in population, there is demand for land for various kinds of activities. I have to be very prudent in the way I use my land. This we can see in the agricultural field to some extent in many countries. I was to teach agricultural management at the Indian Institute of Plantation Management for a short duration. There was a PhD scholar sitting in front of me who made a very nice statement. He told me, sir, whichever country's GDP is growing at a very high rate, agriculture is going down. I asked him what's the meaning of that. Agriculture is going down means the country has the capacity to buy food from outside instead of making it by themselves. This is just an observation because a country, if it were to definitely, we have to be self-sufficient in agriculture. We cannot be dependent on international forces or factors just like that. But the idea is that the level of buying power of my country increases when my GDP goes high, and I will buy. I'm definitely in a capacity or in a position to buy food from my neighbors or other countries to grow it instead of growing it by myself. Why am I not growing it by myself? Because agriculture consumes large amount of land, sometimes which might be needed for certain other activities of commerce. I must be very prudent when I deploy my land. I might need to a factory which has to make a very specific and very highly wanted medicine. That means I might need land for making it. If you see the history of the city of Bangalore, the entire landscape of Bangalore was once used for the cultivation of paddy, which needed large amount of water. It appears to be the supply of rice to the Vijayanagar kingdom. The entire need of rice was most probably supplied from the modern day Bangalore city. There are enough indices here to show that paddy was grown on a very large scale. Every 3 kilometers here we got a tank, which in the local language is called as a kere, which was a storehouse of rainwater for the entire year. Now, when we are no longer a part of the Vijayanagar Empire, we became a large country with various kinds of economic inputs from various quarters. The land of Bangalore city is used for industrialization, for colleges, for houses, and less for the kind of agriculture it used to be used 405 years ago. Because I can source rice, the country can source rice from rice bells from various pockets of this country. Or I can also buy it from some neighbors who are more focused on the activity of agriculture. Now, that is a statement very well made. Now, this is the idea of comparative advantage which triggers the entire activity of international business. Now, And as I told you, these equations keep changing with time. As my GDP increases, my dependence on many things, my buying power increases. I generally go into importing many things into my country. And to make the balance of payments, I also would try to export many things from my country. But it is a dynamic situation out there. What a country imports 10 years back, it is not necessarily it continues to import or export the same thing because the realities change in various ways. Now, I've tried to, I don't know if the theory of comparative advantage is the only aspect of international economics. It's also maybe resources and capabilities. Today, I am also in the activity of resources and capabilities. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? I might have the resource and capability to make a new kind of product in my country, which is badly needed by some other part of the world. Or I might also go to some other part of the world which has got a specific kind of resource and capability which I might be interested in. What do you mean by that? I might need large land for some activity in my country which I don't find, or I find that land is much cheaper in some other part of the world. I might extend my activities to that part of the world, manufacture the products there, and bring it into my country. Again, an aspect of comparative advantage. I'm not just in the activity of exchange of goods. I am also in the activity of greenfield projects where I go to some other part of the world. I employ the people in that country, make something that I need, and then I get it into my country. Also, an aspect of international economics. So, what does this word called international economics basically encompass? It will encompass many, many more things. It could definitely encompass many, many more things. But having said that, yeah, from what I have told so far, international economics might be theory of comparative advantage, where I buy things which I can afford to buy and not make here, because making is a more costly proposition. It's also good for the world community that each country focuses on its core competence. Certain things which are not my core competence, I import it from, I get it done from other parts of the world. The right word may not be import. It becomes a fodder, or it becomes an aspect of international economics. I would actively consider getting it from outside instead of making it here. So that is one aspect of international economics. The other aspect is the exchange, or is the use of resources and capabilities of non-domestic locations. Because I get things at a much lesser cost than what it is when I make it in my country. So very beautifully the concept of the word of international economics is explained in these two dimensions. It talks on one side about products which I already have, and on the other side also talks about intangible things like resources and capabilities. I could give you an example somewhere. China must be having large amount, some country around India must be having large amount of water resources and hydroelectric power. Hydroelectric power might be seen as a cheap form of electricity because I don't need very high investments into making a hydroelectric power station. Maybe some penstocks to bring water from a higher level into my turbine. So that's a ready-made gift of nature. I might have some country near which has got such kind of resources and is generating power much more than what I need, what they need. So I could definitely ask them to give me power, which will be much economical for me to buy there than to make one here, because I may or may not have the kind of resources what they have, or I have to create other kind of paraphernalia which would be very costly for me. And everything said and done, such a situation touches on resources and capabilities. There might be this happens between this equation of resource and capital is now is actively happening between various countries in Africa. Sometimes these resources might be latent. I might go to the other country and say, well, here you have a huge waterfall. Why don't you use it for power generation? Or we will help you in making the power generation unit here. We will give you a share of the power and give us the other share of it. And that such a scheme could work out. Now, I said earlier on in this lecture, the input into the overall activity of international business is international economics. Utility and difficulty is what describes the world called economics. I need something, and I find the least difficult way to get it. This is one of the hidden concepts of any study of economics. I need something, and I find the least difficult path of getting it. If the path is very arduous today, I try to simplify it as much as possible, leading to this whole domain or activity of international business. Now, having said that, let us go to the word now called international business. Somewhere we understand the meaning of the word international economics per se. You must think for yourself and say, I used to teach a course in international economics and I touched upon various kinds of subjects. And maybe there are many other aspects to this world called international economics. The world is a very enthralling, interesting, and a very dynamic place. As I say, there's nothing that we need to feel despondent about the world, about various activities. We are yet to mature on various counts. You've got poverty in some parts of the world. It is not a very difficult thing for the international world community and this field called international economics to douse these kinds of negative economics around the world, the modern day world that we live in. Communication is cheap because of the internet. That is what defines the world that we live in, and that's how we are different 25 years ago. Collaboration between various components of the world has become very, very simpler. And so, people to people interaction is also increasing to a large extent, creating various kinds of possibilities. What is the bane of the world that we live in today? The entire world does not speak one language. Is it relevant to the overall aspect of international business, or as we see it? Yes. If we get the whole world to speak a language, that means if all the individual human beings around the world can converse with each other in one language without need for interpreter, we have reached a level of maturity from which wonders can emerge. The world is definitely not a negative place. It becomes negative when there is no international business to study the activities of international economics. Or more precisely said, to counter the forces of international economics. Today it's more easy to plan, implement, and execute activities of international business. When Vasco da Gama came to India searching for pepper, what was he doing? He was somewhere doing international business. Driven by international economics, spices were badly needed in Europe. India was the only manufacturer of spices. The land route was not there, so he had to use the most arduous and most difficult route to use the sea, come to India, find the sea routes because spices were very badly needed in Europe. International business triggered by international economics 500 years ago. And we see various forms of it even today. Now, having said so much, I think we have a fairly good understanding of the world called international economics per se. There are certain things I just cannot imagine making, then I have to buy it from the outside world. There might be many small countries where certain activities simply cannot be done. So I have to definitely source it out from outside. I have to use my core competence and create the necessary prowess to buy the challenges of many of international economics of various countries. I am trying to leverage on my core competence to get the necessary economic posture. Again, I'm telling you, I'm the best B school professor around the world because I use the right kind of words, the right kind of posture to buy the things that my community needs. Assuming that we have a fairly good understanding of what is called as international economics, let us go and try to understand this word called international business, which is a combination of international trade, international finance, and international marketing. Now, we know somewhere understand these three words to some extent. Sometimes it is understood in a very confusing way. Uh, International marketing could also come words like international selling. I somewhere use the word international business development. Now, let us try to understand these three words in some way. International business is a combination of international finance, international marketing, and international trade. What is this word called international trade? If you were to define that word in something in the context of any country, international trade is nothing but a standardized set of items I export and a standardized set of items I import, and which I have been always been doing for a long period of time because uh, that standardization is what makes international trade unique. I may or may not add new items to it for a considerable period of time. The quantity that I export and import are by and large marginally increased, but are by and large the same year on year. And I've been doing this for many, many years. Or that an activity per se is called as international trade. And when I talk the word international trade, I may or may not be exchanging money. I might be doing barter. This I've been doing all along. I give other countries what they need, and I take from other country what I need. And I compare the economic value and of these two items. I've got something called as balance of payments. It literally means that I pay the balance, if you want to look at it that way. Now, there might be an ocean liner that has been exporting and importing a very standardized set of items for many decades at many points in the world. I've got what's called the merchant navy, a naval force which trades. When I use the word trade, when I use the word trade, I may or may not be paying in cash or gold. I only exchange I exchange goods which are equivalent of economic value. That might be a fairly apt way of putting understanding what is international trade. But International trade per se or by itself is a largely static dominion. It does not fully take into account or does not encompass changes or vibrations in the international economics market over shorter durations of time. I hope you understand what I am trying to say. My utility position in international economics might change every year for certain new things because population is increasing. And international trade by itself may not be able to immediately counter those kind of variations and changes. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say very closely. But let us try to understand it, not just understand it, try to dilute it a bit, or not even dilute, break it into even small parts and try to get a feel of what we're trying to do. I don't know what kind of example I can give you. Definitely, the whole world is full of examples. At the end of the day, everything is trade. But if you want to define the word trade, I don't make an cash payment or maybe even gold payment. I largely go in for exchange of largely goods which are of equivalent economic value. Arabs used to come to India 400, 500 years ago. They used to carry on the ships various forms of goods. They used to carry horses with them. They used to carry precious jewels with them. They used to carry olive oil with them. And many centuries back, they used to travel from port to port and trade and trade and trade. That's a very fantastic word. The trader needs to be very astute because he should know what is in demand in the next trading point that he is going to stop. I'm going 500 years ago. An Arabian trader with 100 horses. What is the meaning of trade in the ancient form? Buy cheap, sell dear. That is the definition of trade, if you want to really use that word. But definitely now I don't use such kind of words. If I'm 100 horses, I come to the bank, I would definitely first anchor my ship at some places where horses are badly wanted. I will exchange those horses for some other item which is badly needed at the next port where I'm going to halt. It might be spices. A horse could be an equivalent of some tons of spices. And I'm going to take those spices and then try to trade at some other place for some other kind of equivalent. And finally, maybe come back to my country with certain goods that are badly wanted in my country. See the modus operandi. When I bring those items which are badly wanted in my country, I exchange those goods for gold and I become wealthy. So I start off with what I have, I go around the world, exchange and bring things that I badly want. And I sometimes land up making huge profits. Because the utility function is different at various points. I play the game very well. It depends upon where I anchor and what I sell. And I should be very careful with the equation so that my whole trade becomes financially very profitable. But I have come from my other locations back to my country, maybe with certain goods that are badly wanted in my country, which I sell for gold. Now we understand that it is a standardized activity. Trade, you could use the word as it is a standardized activity. It's a time immemorial activity. I think I'm slowly running out of time, but very quickly let us come to what is called as international marketing, international finance. International finance is a subject that needs its own kind of treatment. International finance comes into play with regards to financial markets, where I pay for what I buy in a centralized international currency. The whole activity of international finance gets triggered and kicked off from there when I have to pay in a currency which is of not my own. It might be dollars, it might be euros. I have to buy currency too, and the whole domain is called, sometimes could be termed as international finance. I think somewhere we are clear about the way we have seen certain things, certain things. This can be subjects of argument. It can be a subject of deliberation. It can be a subject of analysis. It can be a subject of various kind of discussions. But at somewhere I have to define this in certain comfortable ways so that I have a precise view of them. From now on, let us just look at the word called international marketing. What is this word called international marketing? Now, is it trade? It may or may not be trade in the strictest sense of the term. International marketing is an activity of identifying, defining, serving new products and services. Again, the word services, products and services to new pockets in the world. One of the feeders of international marketing is the activity called international research. Now, our challenge would be to understand international marketing as different from other words like international trade, even words like international business development, and words like many other such kind of associated words which you're using. What would be the best definition of international marketing? Now, we see Shell petrol pumps in various parts of India. If you ask me, it is an activity of international marketing. I am bringing oil from some other part of the world, giving a better quality petrol and diesel maybe to non-domestic, to various markets around the world. Definitely would come under the definition of international market. And I am not exchanging for goods. I am selling it to individual customers in that country, and I'm taking cash of that country. Is it international market? Definitely it is international market. What Shell is doing around the world. It has its own difficulties, it has its own constraints, it has its own definitions, it has its own niche, it has its own vagaries, it has its own what we call domains, its own boundaries, and its own uncertainties and its own factors. When I use the word international marketing, I am talking of competition per se. I am going into some other country and competing with non-domestic, with their domestic players. Please see the search called Porter's Diamond. If I'm not mistaken, now I don't exactly remember. Please see if you're somewhere. You can Google search Porter's Diamond. Where he has talked about an international marketing model. which I'm not able to totally recollect now. In my MPhil exam, they had definitely asked that question, Porter's model, and I gave a very detailed explanation of it, ran into many pages because I read that at that point in time. Now, somewhere, some of the one of the unwritten laws of international market and marketing is that if I'm not strong in my country, I cannot be strong in another country. Which means that I'm talking of market share. I'm talking of I'm talking of local competitors. I have to do. I have to. I'm in a space where I am trying to get market share, and I have to conduct my activity in the way that conforms with local laws, conditions, cultures, and many various other social factors and aspects. Now, this is how international marketing. Now, I will tell, and the converse of this situation. India has got companies like Infosys which make software. Are they doing international marketing? Definitely international marketing. They are going to various countries around the world, doing concept selling of software. I can develop software for your various kinds because which can improve your organizational productivity. I am competing with many local players who could be in that similar kind of activity. Also, I am competing with various other suppliers from other countries too, international market. And I have to overcome all that to get a sizable market share to survive in the country. I have to build the necessary competences and have necessary backup of people. And when I talk of international marketing, I'm definitely I'm definitely talking the word called dealers because I'm developing dealers around who could deal my product in that non-domestic territory. In international marketing, I am dealing with certain non-conventional products, but more precisely, I am dealing with the population of that country. That would define an international market. It is not a government to government transaction. It is a company to people transaction, and vice versa. Now you have an understanding of these words. These words must be people could define or the people could have varying or different views of it. Now, is there any other aspect to this word called international marketing? I've already given examples like this. Now, why is it that I am I am sometimes I'm not relying on other partners. I'm getting it into some kind of a direct involvement. But in international marketing, there are two ways. I can have direct investment into the foreign country, or I can have partnerships, or I can also acquire a defunct organization within my target country who wants to sell their resources to me and make me more capable in that marketplace. When Caterpillar sells its earth moving equipments around the world, it is definitely doing international marketing. You must also understand when I say international marketing, I've got a different kind of product. I've got various kinds of products and product lines. Definitely, I'm doing that. Now, very quickly, uh, this is this again. I will repeat that again. I might make direct investment, or I might use partnerships of various kinds to operate in a non-domestic market. And when I use the word international marketing, my dear friends, I'm coming to the word called international advertising. Definitely, I'm advertising my product. And it's also very important for you to understand that in international markets, there's an area called international product management. What does that mean? A product that I use in some country may not be immediately adaptable to another country. So I have to make changes on the product so that it suits the local environment. Now, these are all challenges of international markets and market. Now, I don't know if someone has defined this word called marketing in a very nice way. It is defined in various places, in various ways. Marketing and the word called promotion. And there are many such allied words. Marketing might be a more dynamic word. If you ask me what is marketing, marketing is the activity of positioning a product in a potential user base. A user base has utility for a specific product and I position it there. That means I'm using the word called positioning in the way I operate in international markets. Now, by and large, it's very important for us to understand what international marketing vis-a-vis various words that we use, various other words that we use. Very often when I market, it may not be a very conventional product. It also involves various kinds of services and other support activities that go along with my product. And how I handle them is also an activity of international. Having made these statements and given also maybe a couple of examples of international markets and marketing per se, let us try to at least make 2 3 points that makes international marketing unique, or the definition of international marketing more comprehensive. How would we make certain points? Point number one, international marketing directly deals with the populace of another country. I'll repeat it. International marketing deals with the populace of another country. Two, international marketing is sensitive to various social factors and legal factors of that country. Point number one, international marketing relates to the populace of that country. Point number two, it touches upon the various social, legal, and other political factors of that country. Point number three, international marketing invariably involves advertising. International marketing invariably involves advertising. Point number four, international marketing involves domestic and non-domestic competitors. Point number five, to survive, companies have to get an acceptable market share within a reasonable period of time. Now, one more, the next point, I don't know how many points I've told. The next point is that international marketing invariably involves the local currency of that non-domestic market. It is not trade. I am collecting money from them in the local currency. It involves the local finance of that country. International marketing involves partnerships with a non-domestic country. International marketing involves market share. I don't use a word called trade share. Let us not talk about trade at all. International marketing involves market share. Multinational companies thrive because they operate in various non-domestic locations. In some places they are very strong, some places they may not be very strong, but they are happy that places where they are strong and they survive because they are operating on a large network of non-domestic markets. Is there any other factor that involves international marketing per se? I think I may not be able to narrate again all the lines that I told so far. It must be more than six or seven. Is there anything else to this overall definition of this word called international marketing? Oh, very important. International marketing involves constant international market research. And cars are sold in India, none from by foreign players is definitely an issue of international market. Definitely issue of market. Now, well, I have given a very quick understanding of what some of these words could be. Before I conclude, very quickly, I have to continue. There are various ways, levels of maturity of international marketing. Very nicely defined. That's what makes the study of international marketing slightly unique because I try to define various levels of maturity. The first level is an international company. When I'm international, I have an office in some other country and operate through that office. Sometimes the office is run by my own people. I've got international. The next step somewhere would be a multinational company. What is meaning of multinational company? In a multinational company, I am operating in more than one country. That could definitely be at a basic level the definition of multinational. From international, I'm going to multinational because I'm really multi. I'm operating in a large amount of non-domestic markets. Is there any other definition for a multinational company? Yes, when I talk about multinational company, to some extent I am taking the local workforce. There is a human resources issue there because I am using a workforce which is also non-domestic. The next level of maturity is I am a global company. What is the definite difference between a global company and a multinational company? In a global company, I am using what is called as global economics. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? I am not only selling in that country, I am also making in that country. Definitely an aspect of international marketing, but I have become a global company. What a beautiful word. Very few companies in the world could be really termed as global. There are many. Definitely, some of these so-called multinational companies have definitely come to maturity level of what we call as global company. The next maturity level is I'm a transnational company. What is the meaning of transnational? Now, it is largely boundaryless. When I use the word transnational, my organization is so intertwined in the cultures of various countries, the countries lose their identity, and the company by itself acts like some kind of a virtual country. The strict definition of transnational company is comes from the word called virtual manufacturing. I've gone to the depths of manufacturing economics. Transnational company. Transnational company. Maybe some of the mm, um, aeroplane manufacturers, majors around the world, could be termed as transnational. Definitely, if they understand it or not. What is this area called virtual manufacturing? Many of the components of my product, please understand this very clearly, are from various countries on one side. I am going to every part of the world where I can get an input at a much lesser price. And in doing so, I'm spanning the whole globe. On the what we call on the back end, their manufacturing is done, or I'm sourcing various kinds. I'm leveraging the core competence of the entire world. I'm going for certain products from any. I'm willing to source it from any corner of the world. A transnational company, and I've got markets which are by and large in most countries of the world, and I'm using a workforce which are from almost all the countries of the world. I've got a transnational culture. I hope you understand what this means. I'm going to the definite level of maturity where I'm sourcing from various corners around the world, focusing on the core competencies of various communities, and I'm selling my product to almost every market in the world. If you want to say the company called Nokia, I don't know, could definitely, which sells mobile phones around the world, might definitely be called as a transnational company. I've not worked there, I've not seen what exactly happens there. But I am talking of such kind of a maturity levels. Now, I'll repeat again, I've got an international company which becomes a multinational company, then becomes a global company, then becomes a transnational company. As I go from the lower level to the upper level, the identities of countries become diminished to a large extent, both in the workforce and from the places where I source and to the markets to which I serve. I think the world that we live in, many companies with time are going to become some kind of transnational corporations much very easily because of the power of the internet. Now, this is an overall idea of the entire activity of international marketing. There are various kinds of nitty-gritties in this subject, which we call modern day marketing, which uses principles of modern day marketing to some extent, to a large extent, though adapted to non-domestic conditions. The most important barrier to international marketing is language and culture, which can be very serious hiccups. So I've got what is called as modern day international HR, human resources, where I'm trying to tell various communities of people what is the culture, the do's and don'ts in various non-domestic markets, which can be embarrassing and be counterproductive if not properly smoothened, and definitely a challenge of international markets and marketing. I repeat again, the most important challenge in international marketing would be the language, culture, and the legal barriers that exist in, because I have to harmonize that across various kinds of world. In a transnational company, that is very well harmonized because I have got all kinds of manpower and paraphernalia to give minimum amount of distress or impediment to my overall activity that I'm into. Now, these are, is there anything, any other aspect that we have to cover in the overall activity in internet marketing? Yes, activities like international business research. Is there something else that involves international? I'm comparing various kinds of markets, and the most important thing is adapting products to international market needs. I might have a product, international innovation. What product I use in my country for some purpose can be used, put into a totally different use in some other country. A very interesting aspect of international markets and international marketing. Now, having made these statements, I hope we understand that. Please go through this and then Try to make your comments on whatever it might be, so that we are. But definitely, please take heart. We want to make this world a very vibrant international platform for all our activities of commerce and business